Ron.
At it again. This is Randomly Intentional. I'm Timothy on Purpose.
I'm Rain. If
got a little bit more energy.
Do you?
I'm just acting like I do.
I feel like you do.
Oh man.
I feel like you do. I've been hearing you in here talking on the phone. I'm like, man, I thought we were both tired, but now I'm feeling like it's just me's tired.
I'm charged a little bit, but I am tired. I am. You said you're exhausted. I think that's a good word to describe it, but you know how you get like have you ever had a fourth wind?
A fourth wind? That's where you're at?
I'm exaggerating, but yeah.
Damn.
I'm on my second wind.
Okay, so anyway, let's get into it because we're here, right? So was just talking about this news story. I saw this news story just now. Akon was trying to build this futuristic city. I lost the post, but I remember it. He was trying to build this futuristic city that was supposed to cost $6 billion out in Senegal, Africa. And the news story they were posting, they were kind of roasting him for not finishing the project. And they were showing the renders of what it was supposed to look like, this Wakanda-style city. And then they were showing the actual pictures of what was there. It was just a big old empty lot, field of grass. There was cows in it. And they had one building that they had started to frame that was in a cool kind of futuristic shape, but he never finished it. And what I was getting ready to say was, and I don't know how you feel about this, but as much as I think it's, it's like, who are they to try to make fun of him or tear down what he was trying to do? That's not cool. He at least had good intentions. He didn't even have to think about doing something like that. Maybe he was making money on it. We don't know anything about the business deal or what was going on there, if it was just really philanthropic where he was just trying to do something and create economy in Senegal. Who knows what his intentions were? I haven't heard him speak about it for himself, so I don't know. I think I've briefly heard him talk about it, but I don't know what his thing was. But I do think two sides of the coin. A, don't judge. You don't know how hard he might have tried to get that done. Investors pulled out, or, it was hard to get reliable contractors out there. Who knows what challenges he faced trying to get that project off the ground. Maybe he did the absolute best he could. But I also think that when you go to an area or you speak to a group of people who desperately need an opportunity, and you present a big opportunity and you're like, oh, it's going to be huge and it's going to create all these jobs, you just got to really try your best. And I'm not saying he didn't. Maybe he did try his best. But you really do got to try your best to make sure that you can follow through on it, because what that means to people that desperately need an opportunity is more than it means to you doing business deals between one billionaire and another billionaire. That deal falls apart. Whatever. I got 10 other things going on. But these people, if you say we're going to create jobs and we're going to create this city, and then you don't, it feels like that's the only chance they had in their whole life. A lot of these people. I've been helping one of my close friends who's a coach at my son's soccer club. I've been helping him put together a project. We've been putting together a free soccer club, expansion of the soccer club here in his hometown of Harare, Zimbabwe. And, it's been just an amazing experience watching those kids get the opportunity to try out. There's no cost. We fund it all through fundraising on this side, so they don't have to pay anything. They get travel. If they need travel to get to the practice fields, to the games, equipment, coaching, everything, they don't pay a penny for it. And over the weekend, I left my phone in the other room. Over the weekend, they got their jerseys, their uniforms officially, right? So they had been practicing in their own clothes and whatever, and they got their uniforms. What a moment. And I can't wait to see the video, but he sent me the pictures and stuff, and he's like, bro, I almost cried. Like, seeing these kids, how happy they were, how you could see it on their faces. They were so proud. It meant so much to them. They all had the uniforms on. They were a team. It was real. They had believed what we told them, that we were going to create this opportunity for them, and they were together, but they were still just practicing in their clothes. And it's like, okay, are we really going to do this? And now they got the uniforms on, looking sharp. And it's funny because it's not funny, but, some of the kids, I'm seeing the pictures, and they got the jersey on over their regular clothes. Like, they all just got the jersey and they just threw it on. And there was one kid, he had a long sleeve shirt on, and he's got this beautiful brand new jersey on, and he's smiling, but you can see the shirt he has on under the jersey, and it's tattered and dirty. And it's like, man, you can't see it because he's got on this nice jersey now and he's smiling, but you can see under the brand new jersey that old, sweaty, dirty shirt he had on. And I'm like, that's what's really going on. And man, that's a beautiful thing. And it's just such a small thing. You know, it's a small group of kids. We got 2 teams out there. We want to expand it and have more teams. But, you know, I'm thinking about it through that lens. Even though the Akon project was much, much larger, I'm still thinking about that, what we promised to those kids when we had the tryouts and when we said, hey, you're going to get free coaching and we're going to take you to the games. I can only imagine that kid that's got that jersey on, maybe that's all he has in life. You know, he's probably going to sleep smiling because he's on that team now and he's got that jersey and they're going to play the games and he's got practice tomorrow and he's probably at home dreaming and he's thinking and he's like, man, maybe I'm going to make it out of here. Maybe I'm going to make it somewhere. If we stop that, if we don't do our side over here to continue the fundraising and make sure that we can afford to continue keeping that effort up over there, how sad would that be? You know what I mean? And so, like, we can try as hard as we can try, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. That's life. You can only do what you can do.
Right.
But, man, we owe it to them to do everything we can do.
Yeah.
We owe it to them to do everything we can, because if we're lazy, if we get distracted, if we don't prioritize it and we run out of money and then we got to go, hey, guys, sorry, we got to disband this thing. We can't afford to keep it up. We get to just go on living our lives, but that dream is over for them, you know. And will another one come? Hopefully, but maybe not. You know, will something else like that show up again? Hopefully, but maybe not.
Right.
So that, you know, I'm not judging Akon at all. I don't know anything about that situation, but I do think that in general, when you make promises to people, you got to be aware of what that might mean to them. You know, I think some people go around just.
So tell me, like, give me a little bit more context on the article, because I've heard you say that a few times already.
What?
That he let people down, or people were expecting, you know, based off of a promise, you know, that he made, or, you know. So what's more? Is there more? What is the context to?
I'm making a bit of an assumption. I loosely remember this being spoken about before, but what I'm basically saying is, if you establish a $6 billion project in Senegal, Africa, I think it's safe to assume that at some point there was a press conference. Akon stood up there with government officials. They spoke to the world and the community there about what they were doing and how it was going to impact the local economy, the jobs they were going to create, the opportunities that it was going to create. I have to assume that all that happened. How else could that happen? And when that project, is canceled, all those opportunities that were attached to it go away as well. So that's all I'm saying. I think it's just, it's probably logical to assume that they said, hey, we're going to create jobs and opportunities with this project. Why else would they even do the project there?
Right.
So that's all I'm saying, and I'm thinking about it from the perspective of those Senegalese people in the area who were working there or planning to work there, who were building businesses, dreaming, thinking about ideas, people that were going to come, economy that was going to be created, how they were going to take part in it. And now all of that they dreamed about just gone. When they find out, they're canceling that. Okay, well, back to square one now. So that's what I'm thinking about. And I'm not, down in Akon because, like I said, I don't know anything about the story. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they canceled it. I know in that story that I just read, though, they did a little play off his name that I thought was funny but messed up. They were like, maybe it was just Akon.
Right.
They'll do you dirty, man. Anyway, what do you think about that, though? What do you think about, the commitment that you make? Because I think you do that, too, right? I think you make commitments. Like, how has it been for you? And specifically, I would ask, with your mentoring, are you still doing that?
Yeah, but not not in the way that I was once that I was doing it when I first came home from prison. It's kind of it's more the mentorship is more tailored towards young adults now versus teenagers.
Oh, okay. Why?
Because a lot of the opportunities that I have right now are with the community college, and so that's just where the need is for me, and everything kind of aligns there for me. So job opportunities, and then youth. A lot of, like, I've run into a few youth that I mentored when they were 14, 15, 16. Now they're 19, 20, you know what I'm saying, stepping into college.
Nice.
And so I'm realizing, like, their lives have changed, but they're looking for a new sense of mentorship. And I think where I was able to, and I still do have an opportunity just through a different angle to mentor youth that are in detention facilities or that are in like continuation schools or like probation community court schools.
I feel like now that you say that, I feel like the continuation school, man, the kids that are there, that's where we really need to catch them. Because that feels like that's a pit stop on the way to a juvenile detention facility.
A continuation school?
Yeah, it feels like that's the first place they put you, right? Like that's the first place they get rid of you from the regular system. Let's get you away from all these other kids and let's put you over here. At least that's the way I remember it when I was a kid. That's where the bad kids went, right? It's like you got in trouble, okay, we're going to send you over here. But those are the highest at-risk kids of ending up committing crimes. You know, there's already something going on with them that they've been excluded from the rest of society already. So that to me feels like a pit stop on the way to jail. And maybe we should be really like urgently trying to put our hands around those kids there and stop them before they get too far down that path, get a record, get institutionalized, get further into whatever they're into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might be the best opportunity to stop.
Yeah, well, it's happening. I mean, you know,
That's good.
that's already the urgency for youth or young adults in spaces that aren't, you know, the typical or traditional, you know, route to a diploma or a degree. Yeah, you know, you're finding individuals like me in spaces where now it's like I'm pursuing a degree, but
Did you graduate high school?
yeah,
You did?
yeah,
Like
with the
walked
diploma.
and everything?
Yeah,
Oh,
walked and
really?
everything, yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Not in California. I got sent out to New Orleans, and I ended up graduating at Oliver Perry Walker High School, which was a pretty renowned high school for sending people to the NFL and sending people to pretty big colleges. And now it's transitioned. They've combined high schools, that high school with Landry, and yeah, they've actually created like a what do they call them? Like a not a magnet school,
Like
but
a
it's,
charter school?
yeah, but it's kind of like a hybrid between charter and like trade tech. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So it's like it's something they try new, but it's because it's like projects, like literally a half a mile down the road, and then up the road, they might as well be projects, but it's all like flat homes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you have the elite of athletes that are just growing up athletically gifted because it's just it's genomic.
Right.
But then you also have that intelligence too that's typically always, you know, forfeited to the gang or forfeited to the life of crime. You know what I'm saying? So I think by bringing all these high schools under one, you get a lot of great teachers under this one, you know, educational pursuit or like mission. And yeah, man, they've been thriving. But I went to New Orleans after I had caught a case and got like blessed to get out of that situation. I got sent out there, and then
Wow.
graduated high school a few years later.
Did we talk about the public school system already? No.
Well, I mean, we've talked about the.
I mean,
public school
recently
system.
though.
I was telling you about why we choose not to put Ian in a public school, or like why I'm revisiting my choice to agree. He was younger, but now he's 13, and so I was saying that I was sharing with you like I'm more for him stepping into a public school now. You know what I'm saying?
Why?
Because I'm thinking about the adversities that Ian has faced in the school that he's at.
Socially, this is all about so you're talking about social only.
I'm talking about socially, and I'm talking about psychologically. You know what I'm saying?
I think you are in an advantaged position with him when it comes to education, because the way his brain is wired, he's going to learn. He's a smart kid. He wants to consume information, and he's going to consume the information he wants to consume. He's very strong-willed, I think, in that way. That's my perception of him. My point is, you don't have to rely on the public school system as much as maybe other people do to initiate learning with him, because he's going to seek it out on his own. Mm-hmm. And whatever he's naturally attuned to, he's going to absorb it deeply. So you don't really need the public school education system to educate him. He's going to educate himself. They may present knowledge to him, but he's going to consume it where he chooses.
I
said I didn't have my phone. It was in my lap.
I didn't realize that. I just assumed when you said that it was just there.
I'm asleep, bro.
Ian, he's very absorbent, you know what I'm saying? Like he absorbs things, and they just develop in him in ways that I'm starting to see now. He'll be all right anywhere, you know what I'm saying?
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah. 4 years ago, it was a challenge, you know what I'm saying? Like, mainly because a lot of public schools that have hundreds of kids and like up to 30, 40 kids per class, which that might be an exaggeration, you know what I'm saying? It may be an upward of like 25, but not a lot of those classrooms are like have that inclusive learning model to where it's like there's an aide in the class for a kid that's autistic, you know what I'm saying? Or if there is, that's something that's starting to happen more so probably within the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, but it was, I think, a little bit more newer in the public school versus the charter school system. Classes aren't as big, and the aide and that main teacher, they just have a little bit more of a, from what Keisha was explaining to me, they just have a little bit more of a system within the program of schooling built out for individuals that would be considered special needs, or like that have IEPs or just autistically or Asperger's challenge, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, man, the last year especially, we've seen that with just because of the way that he reads, he's just grown leaps and bounds in his capacity for thinking. You know what I'm saying? So we've seen him just excel in math. We've seen him excel in reading. We've seen him excel in like English and all of the things that we thought he might be challenged with, not because he couldn't learn, but because he was so hyper focused on social interaction, and because he wasn't receiving what he believed, every kid should have, and he was even being met with opposition, you know what I'm saying? It was a little frustrating for us, you know what I'm saying? So some of the opposition even came with some of the teachers, you know what I'm saying, or some of the authority, you know what I'm saying, within the school over the teachers. And so we were just like, man, we got to put him in another environment. So we put him in another environment. He's been there for 2.5 years, 2 years. He'll be going on his third year there. And yeah, now I'm like, because of the things that I'm starting to hear him say and the things that I'm starting to see him do, I'm just like, I think psychologically, there was a phase where Samira and Zuri, Ian did it too. He was at 7 years old. They were just like, man, Ian was like, I want to be white. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I don't like my skin. And we were just like, why? And, you know, once we realized that was a thing for him and he just kept saying it over and over, we were just like, man, the only time he's around majority white kids is when he's at, you know, the school he was at. And so we realized that because he wasn't being as accepted as he was reaching out to be, he thought it was because of his skin color. And to some degree it was, because there was a kid or two that was saying, you should be at the school where all the black kids are. You know what I'm saying? Don't you notice there's not many of you here? And so it wasn't just him, but because he was pursuing these kids the way that he was, and they were actually one was Asian, one was Hispanic, two of them were white, but they were like popular kids in his grade. And, you know, he really wanted a part in that relationship. And at sometimes he was accepted and at sometimes he wasn't. And it was always challenging for him where he'll pull me aside and say, what should I do? And I was trying to identify to him, like, not all the time everybody's going to be who you want them to be to you and for you. You know, some kids are just going to be associates to you. Some kids are just going to be peers. And I was trying to introduce him to these words so that he didn't just see everybody as his friend. So that when
friend or not friend, right?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So he's 13 now. It was a beautiful thing yesterday, yesterday. He's been riding his bike a lot around the neighborhood. He noticed that there's some kids that
that's cool
are 13, 12, and he's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna get out and start riding my bike. I'm like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Get out and start riding your bike. You have to start developing some, like, you have to start developing within yourself, like, some independence when it comes to you, like, identifying who's who outside of school. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are people here in this community too. And so all of them grew up there too, like him to some degree. I mean, he hasn't lived over there in his grandmother's neighborhood since I came into Keisha's life, but, you know, a lot of them kids, they've been seeing each other for years.
Right.
You've been at the pool with each other.
Right.
So it's like now though you're 13, so it's just interesting. They had a ice cream social yesterday at the pool in the community. And Ian was the kid that would ride his bike and ride past the pool full of kids to just kind of feel the temperament out. I think all of us do that to some degree, but he wrote, you know, but yesterday he walked outside to go and walk and realized, oh shoot, all the kids are at the pool. He came back in and stripped down, put his clothes on, walked out, and was like, you know what I'm saying? I was like, that's what's up. Then he came back. That's 2 hours later.
That's great.
You know what I'm saying? And so, but yeah, I think the public school situation for Ian would be.
Oh yeah, I forgot what we were talking about.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I
was saying all to say that I believe that Ian would be a great leader. You know what I'm saying? I think that would develop him out to be such a great leader. And psychologically, him being around other, you know, there's white kids, there's Samoan kids, there's Hispanic kids, there's black and brown kids. Like, there's just a good percentage of everybody. And there's avid, there's high, you know, there are like high achieving kids at this school. There's college level classes there. Like, him choosing the gangbang or him choosing the, like, low hanging fruit, is like unlikely. Not to say that, you know, he's exempt from making bad choices, but I'm like, for the reasons why Keisha doesn't want him to go there, I'm just like, you know, you act like that can't happen from him going to a charter school. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, like, I'll say this, right? This isn't actually where I was going with it, but just speaking to what you said, because it's interesting the angle that you come at it from, which I understand. I remember when my daughters were younger, and us being thoughtful about the environments that they went to school in. Not just the curriculum, not just the educational piece, but the environment, the social aspect, the cultural influences. I remember being thoughtful and intentional about that as well, but that's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about curriculum. But just because you brought that up, when I went to, so my mom always tried to put me in schools that were in, higher income neighborhoods. Obviously, that means there were a lot of white schools. I went to school in La Jolla. In seventh grade, I went to 3 schools. So I went to school in La Jolla, and a lot of the kids at that school, she didn't know, there was a lot of kids being bussed in from Southeast San Diego. They were trying to like integrate the communities at that time. So I'm sure a lot of people in La Jolla were pissed about this, but they were bussing in kids from Southeast San Diego every day, which now that I think about it, that's pretty far. But they were bringing all these kids in to integrate the communities. I'm sure they're not doing that now. And so there was fights and there was stuff going on. At the same time, my mom had lost her job. She married my stepdad, who was a Marine, and he was stationed at Camp Pendleton, so it was far for him going back and forth. And so all of that culminated in her saying, all right, well, we got to get out of here. So then she got me a district transfer and sent me to Earl Warren Junior High School, which was in Solana Beach. We didn't live there, but she was like cleaning houses or something as a business at that time, and she had a client who lived there, and so she used their address to get me in, something like that. And there I was, the way I remember it, maybe I wasn't, but the way I remember it, I was the only brown kid in the whole school. And I'm not the kind of person that perceives people treating me bad because of the color of my skin. I don't feel that or identify with that unless it's unavoidable. I don't assume it is, I guess what I should say. But there it was just undeniable. You know, people were calling me the N-word, pulling my hair because I had a little afro, flat top, whatever. You know, they would mess with my hair. Even, I would say, the teachers, not all of them, but I would say there were teachers who also treated me different. Who knows how I was acting? I don't remember myself. I only remember what I saw through my lens. So maybe I was also, I know that I was a hyper kid, talkative kid, you know, I got in trouble a lot. So maybe I was also bringing attention to myself at the same time. I had a lot of family problems. I don't know how I was acting, but I just know that I know how I was treated, you know? And that didn't last long. I think at some point, I was there for a couple months, some kid called me the N-word, and I had snapped. I mean, the teachers were I would say like 3 out of my 7 teachers or something would just sit me outside the classroom. Like, it felt like as soon as I walked in and opened my mouth, they'd be like, go outside. And I was either in the office or I was sitting outside the classroom. It was embarrassing. You know what I mean? And I was getting frustrated. I didn't have any friends, and not one friend. And I'm not sad about it, but I'm just remembering, like, man, no, I didn't know one kid there, you know, that was nice to me. The only people I interacted with were people that picked on me frequently. So those were like my friends, you know, these were the people that I knew, the ones that picked on me every day. And some kid, you know, called me the N-word, and I punched him in his mouth. And that was it. I was out of there. And then so my mom tried to do it again. So she sent me to Carlsbad, even though we were, I don't know where, I think we might have been living in Oceanside when we first came up here. And she got me a, you know, transfer or whatever. I went to Carlsbad. And I remember showing up and just going like, all right, what's this going to be like? And man, I'm telling you, bro, I have the utmost love, appreciation, and respect for Carlsbad, because there wasn't an ounce of hate at that school from anybody. It was mostly white too. But when I showed up, I remember I fell into a friend group really early. I had one friend named Derek. He was a black kid with a super highlight kid and played a flat top. Another kid named Joe, who's a tall white dude that played basketball. And I can't remember the Mexican kid, but there was a Mexican kid. So it was me. We were like every shade, white, brown, a little bit darker brown, a little bit darker brown, all of us. And there was nothing. There was nothing. We were oblivious to that. And everybody else, I got my first girlfriend there. She was Egyptian. And all the white kids, all the teachers, no, I didn't feel an ounce of judgment, hate, racism, whatever. None of that. And I was so grateful, and I was able to settle in. And and when going to Carlsbad High School was the same thing, you know. There was a little group of black people. Rodney was there with me, Yolanda, and a few others. There was maybe 10, 12. And a lot of Mexicans and a lot of white kids. And I can tell you, there was, again, I felt zero racism. At the beginning of the day, before school, the group of black kids would meet in the front of the school and just hang out there and chit-chat and talk until school started. I was a part of that group. I was also a part of other groups, the skateboarders. I was a part of a couple different groups. But I would usually start my day hanging out with them just because they were in front of the school. So I would get dropped off up there, and then I would just, stand and we would hang out and talk about whatever. Every white kid passing by, the most popular, the least popular, all of them walk by. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Like, stop and say hi to everybody. They loved Rodney. Rodney was super popular. Everybody loved Rodney. And I really appreciated that. What Carlsbad taught me was that white people don't hate you. And I'm glad that I learned that lesson, because that could have gone a different direction based on my experiences before that. And so I think that social part is important, Somehow I still got the idea in my head a little bit later that white people do hate me, and that was a little hiatus I had, and then I realized again later, no, they don't, And but my point is, the reason why I said all that is when I went to Carlsbad High School, though, every year in the news they would make a list of schools that had the most drugs. I don't know if you remember that or if you're aware of that.
No.
But they would have a list of the schools that had like the highest accessibility to drugs, like where drugs were the easiest to find. And I didn't really catch it every year, but I remember sitting watching the news with my mom one year. We were just sitting there and it came up on the news and they were talking about the different high schools, and Carlsbad High School was number 1 in San Diego for accessibility of drugs. There was a lot of drugs in that school. And I thought that's ironic, that she's sending me to this school so that I'd be in a safer environment, because she didn't want me to. At that point, we lived in Camp Pendleton, so I was supposed to go to Oceanside High School. Mm-hmm. But she wanted me to go there. And I just thought, and my point, based on what you said, is, okay, man, send your kid to the nice high school with all the money and drugs and ego problems and whatever issues they got going on there. There's a lot of problems that rich people have. A lot of social, emotional problems, drugs, all that stuff exists. Or send your kid to the poor high school and there's gangbanging and other drugs. And, it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter wherever you send your kid. Sure, there's probably some high schools where they're less likely to get into trouble. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is what's happening in your house. And if you're having the right conversations in your house, which I know that you are, I know that I am, then your kids are going to have the tools that they need to navigate whatever they're going to run into in the world. Ian is 13, right? Mm-hmm. and my daughters are 16 and 17. And what you're going to see very soon that I see right now is you get to this place where you start to realize, like, as you're making decisions about what they can and can't do, can you go here? Can I go there? Can I this? Can I that? Right? Like, the older they get, the more freedoms they want, the more things they want to do, right? And what you start to realize is, oh, pretty soon they're going to be able to do whatever they want. And it's almost like, you know what a lame duck is? Like a lame duck president? Lame duck president is like when they're in the final months of their term, they're about to be out, and nobody really listens to them. They don't let them make a lot of rules. Nobody gives a shit because it's like, look, man, you're basically 1 foot out the door. You don't matter anymore, right? They start looking to whatever's next. They're going to kiss this guy's butt now. And you kind of hit that place with your kids where you're like, okay, it really doesn't do me any good to tell them they can't go here, do this, do that, when in 3 months they'll be able to make that decision on their own. Now, obviously, if they still live in your house, they got to listen to you, until they're financially independent. They can't really make all the decisions for themselves. But the fact of the matter is, legally, they can kind of do whatever they want to do. So there comes a point where it's in your best interest to actually allow them to do the things that even maybe make you uncomfortable, because at least they're doing it while they're still living under your roof. So you have an opportunity to let them experience it and then give them feedback and teach them through it so that they're able to navigate that world on their own, which is inevitable. We're all going to be out here making our own decisions for ourselves. So it's a very difficult, sometimes, I guess, I don't know, I want to say difficult, but it's challenging. Sometimes you have to challenge yourself. You have to challenge your instinct to try to control everything for them and realize that I'm not going to be able to control everything for them anymore. So now I have to really let them expose themselves. I have to let them get exposed to things, experience things. And then I have to teach around that so that they have the tools to navigate this world. So I know it's a whole hodgepodge of stuff I just said, but my point is, no matter where you send your kids, they're going to have the opportunity to do good or bad. And you have to really focus on what you're teaching them, because that's the protection that they have. That's the guidance that they have. And it's sometimes, even though it's hard to do it intentionally, it's okay to let them be exposed to things, because it just creates an opportunity for you to teach. It's okay for them to interact with something or have an experience, because without those experiences and without the exposure to those things, you really don't have an opportunity to teach. If there's nobody in the school doing drugs, how do you really teach them a lesson about how to avoid that and how to navigate, people being around them doing bad things and them not taking part in it? How do you have an opportunity to teach them that if that's not happening anywhere in their world?
I know one of the interesting things is that Ian was like, when I think that's one of the downsides to, I know we probably heard, I don't think it's Molly coddling to the degree that it was being expressed in that one episode. We kind of got that definition for that thing. But I realized, like, Keisha had expressed why she didn't, like, hey, no, you're not going there. She was like, I hated my experience there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
where?
At El Camino.
Oh.
She's like, I hated my experience there. A lot of my peers hated their experiences there. And so you're going to hate your experience there if you go there. And I was like, man, I was thinking about it. I'm like, it is a different day. I mean, it's a different year, you know what I'm saying, by like 15, you know what I'm saying, years or more, actually. But it's like, he was like, why? And then I was sharing with him, you know what I'm saying, that in our day that, there were riots. A lot of black kids were forced into situations. They weren't gang members. They were just black. Mm-hmm. And one day found themselves in the middle of a race riot, and that changed the way that they seen school every day. Now, because they're like, and it was between us and Hispanics, but Ian, for him, he was just like, what? Why would that even happen? Then you start to realize, like, man, we live in Oceanside, so it's like, I'm realizing like he has no clue. He has really no clue of what is actually out there. You know what I'm saying? Like he's like, kids. So he started asking us, like, when did we start seeing stuff like that? Were there riots in middle school? Were there riots in? It's like, no, there wasn't. But there have, like, when I was in 7th and 8th grade, yeah, there were like melees. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he was just like, you guys are having big fights in 7th. What? But why would 8 kids fight 8 kids? And then I realized, like, man, are we giving them too much information?
Or is the information outdated? Because if he's oblivious to it, maybe it's just not happening like that anymore.
No, he's never been to a public school. He's never been to a school where he's never been to Chavez. He's never been to Martin. He's never been to Pacifica. There's no Pacifica. There's Del Rio. He's been in a charter school all his life. So you're not going to see that at High Tech High. You're not going to see that at Coastal Academy. You're not going to see that. It's just not going to be, there's not that many. There are Hispanic kids there. There are black kids there, but the majority of the kids there, are white
Yeah.
But I was sharing with him.
Yeah. Yeah, like my one daughter, I have one daughter that goes to San Marcos High and another daughter that goes to Mission Hills. And the one at San Marcos High, I don't think she's ever seen a fight. And the one at Mission Hills, where there's like more Mexican kids, they're fighting sometimes, and stabbings and stuff like that happens.
San Marcos High has shifted, though.
It used to be
They've cracked down, you know what I'm saying? When Ian was at High Tech High, and I was High Tech Elementary, and I was going to High Tech High to do some preventative work with a lot of the youth there, is because they started to see an uprise in more Hispanic kids coming to school dressed like gang members. Their family was pulling them from San Marcos High, and because they were within the radius, they were getting them into the lottery there, and it was just like the culture was shifting there, and they were just like, not here. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so they immediately reached out to try to get some, like transformational consultants there. You know what I'm saying? Like, we want to see this kind of tended to. But I say that all to say that I believe, like, Ian is showing that, because he's experienced it all. He's been jumped. This dude was jumped in 3rd grade. You know what I'm saying? Pants pulled down. They kicked him, in his crotch. He fought back. And when he decided to fight back, they seen him and pulled him and was like, what are you doing hitting on people? And then another kid had to come and say, hey, no, they actually like jumped him. And then, he all of this stuff the kid has experienced, unfortunately, but it's just like, I grew up in a time where it was just like, you don't come home talking about you got jumped on and you don't do nothing about it. You know what I'm saying? But I was in a position, I know what happened to my life when I embraced that. Everything changed. You know what I'm saying? For him, though, we were like, we wanted something different. So we were just like, nah, man, we're not going to give you permission to go put your hands on nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like, but there's a culture, you know what I'm saying, being raised. And there's a lot of young kids in a lot of these other public schools who, that's a regular, you know what I'm saying? You're going to see a fight at Oceanside High. You're going to see a fight at Martin Luther King. You're going to see kids trying to fight adults at some of these schools, you know what I'm saying? But then there's also the greater percentage of kids who do very, very well. You know what I'm saying? They thrive in these environments. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know there's so many kids that I've seen just express, like, they come from the generations of gangbanging. Their pops is in prison. There's a lot of these kids, or family members have passed away, and they're like, we are not going down that path, and so they lead in ways that I know even though Ian probably wouldn't understand it because it's not generationally in front of him like that. He doesn't have a bunch of cousins that, are in the trenches, but he, I think, could be someone that could grow, and then he's so brilliant when it comes to creativity. Sometimes I feel like in the space that he's at, he's very limited. You know what I'm saying? Because it seems very one-dimensional, even though it is very inclusive, and even though they're not they don't do like the standardized like testing type of deal there. You know what I'm saying? So he does get an opportunity to project his way through, which helps him to be creative and helps get him in front of people and exercise his capacity for, presenting. You know what I'm saying? However, I was just sharing with Keisha, I think he should go to El Camino, or I think he should go to Oceanside. I think that he should be in a position to be able to absorb culture, in ways that he just can't, in some of these other opportunities. But she's like, I don't want him to experience what we experienced. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, man.
I don't think he's not even close to like being at risk though.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's no chance of him falling in with the wrong crowd like that. He's just not that type of kid.
Right.
Where I was going with all this though is what do you think? And I have to use the bathroom. Mm-hmm. Do you have time for us to keep talking if I go use the bathroom?
You can ask a question. I can just talk to these people.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure who's on, but I'm sure somebody will be watching this at some point.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask about, and I kind of need to hear this, but I want to know what you think about the public education system in terms of the education, the curriculum, what they spend their time on, not the social aspect, in the classroom, what they spend the time teaching, learning, how they administer the lessons, what they expose them to. What is your perception of that? Obviously, it's different from school to school, but not vastly. It's marginally different. But it's still basically the same curriculum. Maybe they are more hands-on here, more textbook here, whatever. But they kind of teach the same thing everywhere. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think. If I'm thinking about La Jolla Country Day versus El Camino, I'm sure, I know he said that the curriculum is the same. They just teach it different. I'm not too sure about that. I probably would lean more to the side of that it is different. You know what I'm saying? Probably more than it is the same as far as how the curriculum is, how the curriculum is like developed and how it is presented, and I just think there's a little bit more of a strategy for being able to absorb the information, and the information that's being made available through the curriculum is curated in a way that is going to sit different within, the hearts and the minds of those who are learning it, especially when it comes to those who are teaching it. I think I really believe in that whole ideal of like certain curriculum made by certain individuals for certain individuals. So it's like, yeah, Hispanic kids and black kids and Asian kids can adapt over time, or maybe not over a long period of time, but just if there isn't a lot of trauma going on, or if there isn't a lot of distraction going on, and if there are both parents in the home, then there is a lot of support, even if both parents aren't in the home and each parent is involved equally, or to some degree there's a strong support, then I think any kid or any brain or mind with that type of, support momentum behind it can develop and receive and absorb in any environment in with, you know, but I do believe that certain systems are developed strategically for certain
I'm back in the game. I'm back in the game.
for a certain mind to learn it a certain way. And if you're distracted in any way, I was pretty much sharing that. So like point one, when it comes to like the public school education system,
Okay.
I believe like you have public schools in Carlsbad, you have public schools in Encinitas,
Yep.
you have public schools in Del Mar,
Right.
you have public schools in Oceanside, you have public schools in Vista. It's like you were saying something about the curriculum being the same all the way across the board. You know what I'm saying? It just might be, and I don't know much about this, just like hearing from certain educators or like from even from Keisha or some of her circle. That's why a lot of parents don't, like the parents that do, they try to keep from putting their kids in one public school or another. Like if there was a different curriculum at a public school, they would put their kids in that specific public school because the curriculum would be different. I was thinking to myself, even as I just said that, I'm realizing, like I said earlier, I believe all the curriculum is probably not the same. You know what I'm saying? Like the curriculum wouldn't. I wouldn't think that the curriculum would be the same in Del Mar as it would be in Oceanside. But then I guess that because there are standards, you know what I'm saying? I'm not really sure how that works, you know what I'm saying? And that there is a specific, I guess, code that it has to be the same to some degree.
Yeah, the state mandates the majority of it.
But I would say that it's problematic because kids in Oceanside, especially that come from, we'll just say the Deep Valley area or the East Side area, it's like if you're expecting them to learn a history that doesn't support them or a math that wasn't developed by or curated by a mind that, I mean, all math is math, right? But at the same time, if it's not, if you do come from a home where there is probably one parent or there probably is a lot of trauma, and this can be in any environment, but we know that in Oceanside, there are certain areas, just like maybe in Carlsbad or maybe in Encinitas, you know what I'm saying? There are, you know, most likely not every home is two-parent, you know what I'm saying? Not every home is drug-free or alcohol-free. But if you're talking about a school that's teaching the same way or teaching the curriculum the same in two different regions where the demographic is different and the income level is different, that they're, you know, I would think that to benefit both, it would have to be taught. The same curriculum would have to be taught different in Oceanside than it would be taught in the La Costa area, just based on what is going on within the environment.
I agree.
and
You got to
how-
get teachers that can relate to the students. That's really what it comes down to, right? Is you might have same foundational curriculum, but you've got to present it to the right, to your, you got to know your audience.
Right, and but even more so, like when those like adverse childhood experiences come into play, which impact and affect the way that anybody's going to learn. If you have trauma bonds, or if you have, I think that's where it's, you know, that's where it gets kind of like, where do, you know, where is the benefit for my child? You know what I'm saying? Do I So anyway, I'm gonna answer your question.
Okay.
I'm gonna answer your question
Because this is still social, though.
Well, no, it's not social. It's like, how do you learn and how do you teach those who learn different? So if I'm basically speaking from the perspective of like, if I'm walking from if when I was growing up in Oceanside, there was like 30 of us in one neighborhood. We all got split up on where we caught the buses, but within that valley area, there was about 30 of us at one point, and to some degree, a lot of us ended up in juvenile hall. So there was one year specifically where I remember that there was like 12 of us. Now, between the shootings, between the one parent home, and between certain movies that came out, like South Central, like Menace to Society, different time periods, but within the same year or two span, when you're going to school and you're not really knowing that there is an educational program that's been curated to teach you, you don't really know. I didn't know how to receive the math, and it wasn't that I didn't know how to math. My mom was like a math genius, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like I couldn't learn math. I just think that because I was so distracted and because of the things that were compounding that I was going through, whether it was the molestation, whether it was the alcoholism going on around me, whether it was me seeing somebody shot, I think that played into me being able to not only concentrate, but me being, and it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just the black males. You know what I'm saying? There were some things that black females, Hispanic, Samoan females and males were going through, and we made up a good percentage of that school in those years between 94 and 99. You know what I'm saying? So it's like for 4 years, we're in a high school. This is where zero tolerance came into play. This is where continuation schools like Ocean Shores or Alta Vista, like certain things began to be the reality, and there was no like curated. Now they did bring individuals on the campus to try to like mediate and try to like mitigate for like things that they couldn't as the staff, or they just felt like we don't get paid to do this. We're not counselors, you know what I'm saying, and we're not mentors, so to speak. But I think that it came to a point to where when I look back now, this wasn't every kid's experience. There were a great amount of kids in the school that were able to adapt to this curated curriculum. But for a lot of us, we weren't able to. And I was just saying that if you have a La Costa area where there probably isn't no shooting going on, there probably isn't no stabbing going on. There may be a lot of drug addiction, or there may not be. I guess what I'm saying is that public school wise, there were a lot of things that I believe we would have benefited from if it was lined up with psychology, if it was lined up with sociology, if it was lined up with economics, if it was lined up with communication, more so than it was English, math, science, and all of like the traditional curated curriculum.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? For individuals who, you know, as you see, there is no culture of STEM down this way. You know what I'm saying? Once you hit, especially like the Torrey Pines area all the way up, you see, you know, I remember working at one company, and it was like the summer program for kids was to come and work for some of the biotechs as the summer job.
Huge.
You know what I'm saying? And you're an intern at 15, 16 years old.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just like,
more of that.
That's not even a thought in like down this way. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can intern on a farm, you know what I'm saying? Or you might can intern. It is very good. But I guess what I'm saying is mindset wise, I think curriculum, if you're asking me what, you know, if you're asking me like what I think could and should be different, or what I maybe did or didn't appreciate about the curriculum, I look back now when I understand that they would send us to a continuation school and try to teach us the same things when a lot of us were really trying to learn how to deal with our emotions, how to deal with how to communicate, how to deal with the psychological of what's going on, how to understand fight, flight, freeze, fawn, faint, all of the stuff, all the circulatory stuff that's going on. That stuff we don't you don't even have an option of trying to tap into this till you get to college. The 100, even if they could have just took something from the 100 level classes and incorporated it into some of what was available in school for the individuals who come from the more urban
Right.
setting. You know what I'm saying? And that could be asking too much, but I think that
Maybe a little bit. That sounds like certain kids needed counseling.
yeah, but counseling.
Which that's fine too, but
yeah,
that's different than like just the education piece. Like certain kids
No, I
seems
think
like they needed counseling.
What I'm saying is that why do we have to learn? Think about it, Rain. Why do we have to learn? Why do we have to wait until we're 19 or 18 to learn about social psychology? Why? Why do we got to wait to learn about mass communication in our first year of college?
I agree.
Why do we got to learn about like the real depths of economics? You know what I'm saying? Or you know, your civic duties. I understand some of that's being incorporated now, but they're being incorporated as like AP classes or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just saying, like, they would bring people in and sit us in these trailers for maybe 45 minutes of the day and say, hey, how are you feeling? Do you still feel like that Hispanic kid is your enemy? Do you understand what's going on? And it's just like, nah, I don't. And there wasn't really a concerted effort to kind of help us to understand what was taking place. Because for some of us, that's where we needed the education. Like you can't, I think,
Right.
you know, and yeah, that's what counselors have went to school and graduated college in, to be psychologically available or sociologically available to youth like us there. But it's like, I think about what's available for the kids now, and it is lived experience, mentors or transitional consultants on campuses that are holding spaces in classrooms for an hour a day or 45 minutes a day, which is a period long situation where these things are being made available. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's interesting that you go there. I can tell that you're thinking about this through the lens of your own experience.
Well, that's, if you ask me, I have to speak from that. I mean, I
Right.
can't speak from another experience.
Well, I more so was thinking about education today and your experience through your kids. That's kind of what I was thinking about, is like, what do you think about the education? Because who cares what education we got? That's already done and gone. That's 15, 20 years, however long ago, 30 years ago. It was a long time ago. But what do you think our kids are getting right now? How do you feel about that? Probably very similar, though, you know?
Very similar. Like when Ian comes home, and Ian is the kind of kid where he doesn't want to go to sleep until his math is done. But he doesn't realize how that's affecting him psychologically. He's learning, but it's like he wants to be socially on par with his teacher. That's why I'm seeing things now, and it's just like there's some content out there where it's been produced by some of these men or some of these women who have pulled themselves out of the school system as a whole, and are like, this is why. Pay attention to your kid and understand and try to identify their stress level when it comes to wanting to perform for their teacher, and then see how sensitive their teacher is to making sure that, this is really the parent's job, to make sure that your kid isn't just overdoing it. But it's like, especially since COVID, like a lot of stuff, I mean, and we choose to homeschool, so a lot of it is on us. You know what I'm saying? Like there is the reality of like we have to do our part. But we have autistic children. You know what I'm saying? Like we have children who are on the spectrum to some degree. They've been diagnosed. Their situations are social reciprocity. And so it's interesting for me. It's like we see a lot of physical stuff taking place with our kids as a result of them feeling like they can't perform. You know what I'm saying? And so whether it's performing in a friendship, whether it's performing in a relationship with us, or even with themselves. And so in a school setting, I remember taking our daughter to a birthday party for a real great friend of hers. And when she got to the party, we got ready to walk her in, and she looked at me and was like, she couldn't move. It was interesting. She was like, and I was like, what? And she was just, I can't. And I'm like, what's wrong? Talking about this girl all week, and we get here and she can't move. And I don't really understand what's going on. And then she expresses in her own little way. Later, she ended up going in 10 minutes later. She wanted me to eat with her, all of the stuff. And it was just interesting. And she was saying like she didn't know how to move past seeing the brother of the girl who she accidentally hit last time they were on a play date. She accidentally hurt the little brother. And when she seen him, she didn't know how to respond. She thought that he would still be mad at her. And so she didn't have the words that she thought she might need if he was angry with her, and she didn't want to fight him. And she just was going through this whole thing in her mind. But I was able to kind of like, and she didn't want to tell me right there in the moment. She got through it, but it was odd to me because I'd never seen her respond like that. And I was thinking to myself like, wow, how equipped we have to be to not only identify this, but just like what tools I could give her based off of what I'm learning in college. Like what actually took place. I didn't want to believe that's what I was seeing when it came to the physiological psychology. But I'm like, man, that is like, that's something that she was able to learn from me. And she's 6. At the time she was 5. It's like, man, she doesn't have that issue no more. Will she have it again at a different level, at a different age, if something else happens traumatic? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But I think a lot of this stuff can be brought to our kids in a way that's integrated with what they're already learning to help. I mean, when you think about the amount of kids these days, the percentage of kids that have autism, that have Asperger's, that have all of these, things that are preventing them from learning like we did back, 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you would think that they would need more of this stuff integrated, not just if you have an IEP, not just if you are diagnosed with autism. These are things that parents should be teaching too. But man, how many parents are equipped with, these things unless you pursue psychology or unless you pursue sociology, like these systems things or these trauma bond types of, things like. So I think that this is stuff that I would love, for Samira, Ian, and Zuri, and Joachim to be able to have an opportunity to learn progressively as they're growing, through their schooling experience. We're teaching it, to the degree that we can, and from our lived experience and through the lens of what we're getting through, mainly me, because of what I'm pursuing and what I'm on track to locking in as far as a profession or a career. But yeah, I think like between communications, sociology, psychology, and I don't know, my brain is blanking on me right now, but there's like 4 specific things that I think, in economics or like civic, like, like civic duties, like those things, I think to some degree have been sprinkled into education a little bit more now, than when we were in school. But I mean, I don't know, like, what do you think about that kind of stuff? Like,
I think I agree with pretty much everything you're saying. I would only add to it a little bit too. Like, I think the thing that you said that is most in line with where I'm kind of going is, why do we have to wait until we're 19, 20, 21, 22 in college to start certain things, to start being exposed to or pursuing certain things? And I think that's the biggest mistake. Like, when we look back, I like to look back at the origin of civilization sometimes to see where things were naturally. The further back you go, the closer you get to our natural instincts and our natural way of life. We're only further complicating and obscuring how we are naturally as we get more complex, more intelligent, go on, and things just kind of get blurred. So I try to look back, like, how was it a long, long time ago? Because that's closer to the origin. That's kind of more so what things naturally are. Not saying evolution isn't important and shouldn't happen. Things should evolve. But there's also some things that were already right from the beginning because they were natural. So I try to balance those two things. And when you look back, you can see in earlier civilizations, people becoming productive far earlier in life than they are now.
Right.
Kids helping their parents tend to the farm and build things and have jobs when they're 12, 13, not 22, 24 years old, finishing college and then starting to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? People already had full-blown families and careers and businesses by then, not just starting to figure it out. And I think we're coddling ourselves and our next generations more and more and more, and giving them permission, giving ourselves permission to not have to engage in life as early as we can. We spoke before about this kind of phenomenon that happens when we see what's possible, then it unlocks it in everybody else. Like when we talked about Ryan Sheckler turning pro at like 11 years old, that was unheard of before he broke that mental barrier, that self-limiting belief. And next thing you know, just very short time after, we get Nigel Houston turning pro at 9, and now kids are turning pro at 6, 7. It's crazy.
Right.
So, and winning gold medals, and how much more was possible that we didn't know.
Yeah.
And so I think the same thing is happening now with the system, the education system that we have. We've told people, don't even think about trying to be productive or figuring out what you want to do or taking action. Just sit and listen until you're about 24 to very general things, by the way. Listen to very general, broad things that are not going to help you identify what you care about and what's interesting to you. And then we're going to kick you out into the world after we've left you saddled with student loan debt, or even if you went through it in a path that didn't leave you with debt, but we've taken up all your time that you can't get back. And now you're 24, 25, and good luck. Go and figure it out what you want to do. And so like the whole track to me is ridiculous and broken. I think, now I'm just like speaking specifically about curriculum. I think you touched on a lot of good things that I wasn't really thinking about, but specifically about curriculum, they have 12 years with these kids, 13 if you count kindergarten. And they go over the same thing over and over and over again, math and English and science and history, and it's basic. And then they get into 99.9% of people are never going to use calculus or trigonometry or any of that, or chemistry. They spend months talking about Genghis Khan. Nobody cares about that. If you do care about it, you can go get that yourself on YouTube and watch a documentary about it. But most people are just struggling through memorizing a few facts so that they can get an A on a test and then completely forget about it. You ask anybody our age about 95% of the stuff that they learned in school that they probably got an A on a test at one point, and they don't even remember ever having heard it.
Right.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
They're spending this precious time that they have with our kids talking about garbage that the state mandated that they need to teach at the expense of, so let's say math, right? You learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, percentages. Those are all very useful. They're breezing past that. Okay, check the box. Now, algebra 1, 2, 3, 4, calculus. Like, bro, wait a minute. Nobody needs to know that. If you get the rare kid who that really is their thing, they're going to go off and be a chemist, a scientist, engineer or something. If that's who they are, give them that track. But that you're exposing everybody to applies to a very narrow segment of kids. Very, very narrow. Maybe the most narrow. But it's been dignified that if you know calculus, you're sophisticated. That's what a lot of what they teach is outdated things that they thought were noble. That parents could brag that my kid knows calculus, my kid is in this, my kid knows that. That's all it is. It's that at one point that knowledge was very difficult to acquire, and if you had it, you were special, and the school was doing a good job, and your kid was smart, and they were going to go off and be successful. It's not important. And they're doing it at the expense of a lot of these kids, they're not strong in the basics that do matter. The addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, percentages. How about instead of you spend the first 5 years on that and then you start going off into obscurity? How about instead of spending the last 7 years doing things that they're never going to use, you keep pounding this so that they're masters of that, so that they can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, percentages in their head. Boom. Because almost anything that you do in life is going to have elements of that you're going to need to know. Master that. Master communication, master English, master writing and whatever communication skills that you need, verbal, written, get kids doing more speeches and interacting with each other and knowing how to, interact and present an idea. Do more of that instead of spending 6 months learning Shakespeare. Who cares about that? If you're interested in that, that's an interest. That's not a life skill. If you're interested in that, go learn it on your own. Pick up, if that's what you're into, good for you.
Yeah.
Go watch that on YouTube. Go see a play. Go read a book. But that's not what it's about, is that it's useful in life. They're not setting them up for success in life. It's that it's dignified if you know Shakespeare. Well, where's that going to get you?
Right, and that was my point. That's why I believe those 4 things are. It's like I don't understand why, and it's crazy because I'm 43 and I'm just now. I started asking the question a year ago, but I'm like, I'm learning this stuff for the first time.
Right.
Outside of some of the stuff I learned in prison about emotional intelligence and social competency and like all of these different things to help me to just hone in on my emotions and hone in on feeling socially out of place now that I'm not operating in a lifestyle that I once operated in for so long. And it's just like, but you get into the depths of like what it means to have an understanding of what's going on in your brain from outside of the mind and the perspective of a psychologist. So it's like all these theories, what I'm saying, philosophy. Like I took philosophy 100 and I was just like, oh, like I never had a clue. That was the other thing. So it's like philosophy, those are the 4 things. I'm sorry, I said economics. That was the economics, and that civic stuff is great too. But like the things that the 4 things I believe that create, like that are responsible for vision, action, and reflection responsibly and consciously and healthily, is like a good understanding of philosophy, a good understanding of psychology, a good understanding of sociology, and a good understanding of communication. Those 4 things, when you go back to school, 9th grade, my philosophy was gang. It was all wrapped up in the gang. My social understanding was that law enforcement was against me. My parents I was confused about them. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really know what was going on with my mom, and my dad was gone. And then my grandfather and my grandmother, all of this stuff. A bunch of friends that I felt were like, I just had to be bonded to. Then you have the communication aspect, you know what I'm saying? Like my way of communicating who I was and how I was very off, you know what I'm saying? Like I had no concept of communication other than what was being communicated to me through the airwaves and through these movies, the people that look like me, you know what I'm saying? And then my whole psychology was twisted, man. Like I was, the stuff I had been through in life, how like fight and flight became my everyday reality, to the point to where I was numb and I was not running no more, and I was fighting everything and everyone. If I had an understanding, now mind you, I'm practicing in all of these one way or another. It's like it was hard for me to kind of try to grasp the concept of algebra or history or anything, you know what I'm saying? Right. Where I think there was a great percentage of children who may have been being fed the philosophy of their parents, who understood philosophy to a degree. They were trained and taught how to socialize in a way, that kept them from being involved in certain things.
Right.
Communication was taught and practiced every day around the table. I mean, every night around the table at some point, or even in the morning, you know what I'm saying, with both parents or with one parent. And then, yeah, so I just think that, you know, I agree with everything you're saying. I'm just really kind of like caught in that,
Right.
in that mindset of thinking how much I believe including those things in the educational curriculum would benefit everybody more so than, I mean, because I'm not going to say that math, I'm not going to say that English, I'm not going to say that history, all of that stuff being taught by when I went to New Orleans, it was a culture shock. It was all black teachers. You know what I'm saying? The whole school was black. You know what I'm saying? Like there might have been a one white head coach or a coach, but everything was taught in context, and it was but by that time, bro, I was so fried that I felt a level of shame, man. Like I seen black kids that were like by the percentage of them though, it was like 75% of the black kids at this school were just like performing at a high level, you know, debate teams and all this stuff. I'm like, man, this is different. And there was a high level of trauma going on around that area. I mean, there was kids, you turn around, there was kids snorting dope in class, you know, but you know, there would be the next kid that was just like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
here's what I think, right? And it's funny because your perspective keeps coming back to like helping people through trauma.
No, well, this is what I'm saying. Trauma is very much, I think, whether it's the type of trauma where it's violence, but that's not always just like the trauma. I'm saying in the sense of like things that we go through as a human being on a regular basis,
right,
that force us to respond through communicating our emotions, psychologically or sociologically, one way or another, through a certain philosophy. I'm saying that whether you've been traumatized or not, or whether your level of trauma is high or not, or
right,
whether you may not even experience no trauma, but it's like
everybody does, but sometimes very little.
How, you know, why are we not given the tools to navigate what we're already what we're already having to practice, but without the education of, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you can think back real quick, and I'll pass it to you, give me an example, if you can, of any adult ever sitting you down and asking you, you know, anything concerning like you socially, you psychologically, communication, or like what your philosophy is on life,
right,
between 9th and 12th grade.
Well, that's a tough one for me because I only went to one semester in 9th grade and then 10th grade, and that was it.
Well, even no adults at all though? Even not in school, but I'm saying between those ages of 15, 14, and 18 or 19.
No, but you also know back in that time, that just wasn't really common. We weren't as emotionally intelligent or aware back then as we are now. So I just don't think those questions were asked at all.
But we were, bro. Isn't it interesting though that in the movies and in the songs and in everything that was being fed to us, those are the four things that are leveraged against us to get us to buy in? You know, you think about when Gin and Juice came out, or think about when Menace to Society came out.
I just mean like the conversations weren't happening the way they are now. Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
Emotional awareness is being talked about constantly now. It was not a conversation back then.
Right.
It was, I mean, of course there was always like the awareness of it in marketing and movies, you know, they understood that, but it wasn't something that somebody would have talked to you about.
But and that's what I'm saying. You look in the philosophy, you look in the theories of philosophy, and not only is it talked about, but it's practiced. You know what I'm saying? You look in this communication stuff and this psychological stuff. This stuff isn't new. This stuff has been around. There are 100 level courses. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's 200 and 300. So it's been around. It's just I'm starting to really understand, like, this stuff is almost like it's intentionally kept out of the curriculum because the more conscious we become, the more likely we are to not make certain decisions to go down certain tracks to feed a specific system.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know about that because it's not like they are talking about it in certain areas and not talking about it in others. I just don't think it. So I think that, and this is just my perception, I think you're in school for this stuff right now, and I think you're loving it. I think you're on fire about it. I think it's unlocking a lot of things for you as you're learning tools to understand yourself and the world around you and people, and I think that's awesome. And I think it's really exciting for you. I see this happen sometimes when people go to, especially in university, and they start to learn about something, it unlocks all the stuff and they're super excited. Like, where's this been all my life? So I think it's really exciting for you, and I do think that it's relevant, but I just don't think it's, I think it's like science or like chemistry where everybody should get some exposure to it, but some people are going to need or want it more than others. I've still been trying to talk about something. I've been trying to get to something I haven't gotten to yet, but I do think that it is still it's a specific interest. There are going to be people who are more interested in that than others. There are going to be people who get more value out of it than others, right? Not everybody needs or wants as much thought or discussion about that.
Yeah, all I was saying was ultimately is you made a point about you made a point about math and
right.
calculus and algebra and all of the stuff that's been forced on us for years. And all I'm saying is that,
this would be more valuable.
No, well, it is.
I agree with that.
What I'm saying is that it is more valuable, and it is more valuable in the lives of individuals who are being fed that. And I think in some curriculum and in some spaces it is incorporated into the curriculum. You know what I'm saying? And into the spaces. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? It is exciting, but the reality is that I'm learning that this stuff has always been there. And it seems intentional, you know what I'm saying, when you think about the school track, and especially when you've entertained or understood a little bit more about like people that really, really believe in the school to prison pipeline. They see like, there is this reality. Like, what do you think about that, the school to prison pipeline?
I've never heard that term before, but everybody talks about how the school system was basically created to create workers, for people to go work in factories. That's what it was. I forget who it was that started the school system, but that's initially what it was they were trying to basically train people to go into employment and do what they're told and follow the rules. And that's really the reason why they started all that, was to raise people to be spokes in a wheel. So wherever that is that they're trying to guide you, whether it's to a factory or to a prison, I agree that system is meant to breed obedience and kind of a narrow thought path. Like, hey, move in this direction, think about these things, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, and don't question it. Be disciplined, do as you're told, sit still, be easy to control. I do believe that that's what the school system is. That's the origin of it, and I think a lot of those remnants are still there now.
Because it's kind of like, when you look at
I
this,
really want to say this thing I've been trying to say
quick,
though.
when you see this, or when you see exactly what you just explained about how this all started, when you have the bird's eye view of it, you can see it. Like, you see it played out. Now that all this information is available, you see how the school system started. When you understand and see why we are the way we are about these things, those four things that I just mentioned are very much, rooted in how this is marketed to us, how we feel about it, why we believe in it the way we do. And we're becoming more and more dependent on this for communication, for how we see ourselves and how we socialize and how we psychologically move throughout life. And that's all I'm saying is that as I'm learning this, I'm realizing that these are the four things that are ingrained in us. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how we operate as human beings, those four things foundationally. And it's just interesting that you don't get you don't get, and it's very basic. You don't get that, you know what I'm saying, from grade 8 up. You know what I'm saying, from grade 6 up. It's just, it's not, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It just seems like, to me, I'm not trying to conspiracy theory this. I'm just saying, when you mention that, you know what I'm saying, about the reality of how we're pressed and how we're pushed on the same subject and the same subjects for over, I don't know when the education system started, but I'm sure it has to been over 50 years by now. You know what I'm saying? 100 years by now.
More than 100 years, yeah.
But yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro. I know you've been waiting.
No, go ahead. Just finish your thought.
It.
That's it?
No, yeah.
No, I think all of that is just, it's so interesting to me, because where I was thinking about this was so another direction, and you're thinking about it, which is the beautiful thing of us talking, is because the way that you come at it is a completely different place, and you're thinking about an aspect that's equally important and actually has some overlap with what I'm thinking too, but just from a different place. So you mentioned like, okay, so maybe math, it was like hard for you to focus on math because you're dealing with basically social emotional issues that made it hard for you to focus. Is that fair or no? Yeah? Okay. I think actually I think there's a solution that renders that less impactful. The social and emotional issues that you might have been dealing with that prevented you from learning, I think that's actually a smaller influence.
For you?
No. For you. I think the bigger problem.
I think it'll be hard for you to speak for what causes someone to not be able to compute.
Let me finish my thought, because I've been trying to say this, and I think it's going to answer a lot of your questions. So I think, and I can say, and I get why you would say that, like you can't speak for me. I'm speaking for everybody.
Well, I was just saying in the sense of computing, when you're talking about math and like how people's brains work, like you said earlier, like when it comes to math, I think if you're going to say generally education.
Let me say this, bro. I've been trying to say something.
Go ahead.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that the real reason why it's difficult to learn some of this stuff is because there's no purpose. That's the real reason, is that they're teaching us things with no premise, no reason why we need to know it, no reason why we're learning it. When they teach about Genghis Khan, there's no, this is why this needs to be known. This is why this is important to you in your life. No, it's just, this is important to us to teach to you because we've been told by somebody else to teach it to you, and we don't really even know why ourselves. If you ask a teacher why it's important for them to spend a month teaching Genghis Khan or teaching Shakespeare, they're not going to have a good answer. They might be able to come up with some BS, but they're not going to have a real answer about why this is very important to you to learn over anything else that you could be learning, why this is important for you to learn right now to prepare you for life. They're not going to have an answer for that. Same thing with calculus, same thing with chemistry. If you said, why are we learning chemistry? Well, maybe you're going to want to be a chemist. Okay, let's pull up the stats. How many people are going to be a chemist? Okay, 0.5% of people maybe are going to be in chemistry. Okay, great. Well, how much time are we spending on it compared to how many people it's going to be relevant to? Are we spending a disproportionate amount of time learning about chemistry when there's only a very small sliver of people who are going to actually use it? Yes. Why are we spending full semesters on something that most of them are never going to use? Well, you're learning how to learn. We can learn how to learn doing anything. We don't need to learn how to learn doing something that's not going to benefit them. Right? So I feel like the real reason it's hard for people to learn is not because of whatever else they're bringing into the classroom with them, but because there's no purpose for it. They're not being told why this matters, and it does not matter to them. So like you probably, like me, like many others, if I can't understand or rationalize why I'm doing this, it's very hard to drag myself to it. Some people are more like that than others. I'm very much like that. My son is very much like that. If I don't actually think this matters, it's so hard for me to force myself to just focus and listen and learn. Some people are lucky in the way that, and that makes them good students, that even if it doesn't matter, they can just lock in and say, okay, this is what we're doing today. I'm going to do this. I would say maybe autistic people can be like that if they lock in on something, they can just do it. I don't know. You'd know better than me, but I think there are some like one of my daughters, both my daughters, they're very disciplined in that way where like you tell them this is what we're doing today. This is what we're doing. You tell them this is what we need to learn. Okay, I'm taking my notes. Like they don't necessarily question it as much. They don't need to know why this matters. Maybe this is even some girls versus boys, and maybe girls are more like that than boys. Girls are definitely better students than boys are. But for me, for my sons, I think you had to convince us that there's a reason why I'm doing this before I can care about it. And I need to maybe genuinely care about it before I can give it my full effort. And so I think, start off, this is my idea, is start off the first couple of years of school teaching the basics, math and English, up until, you get into multiplication, fractions, percentages, division, like the basics, the stuff that everybody uses. You can make the case that everybody needs to know this stuff. How much is this apple? It's 30% off. What does that mean? Right? Like the basics that we're all using. Okay. And then continue to teach that stuff. But the idea should be, what problems do you see out in the world? Let's understand the world. The world meaning the whole world, and also the world meaning your world, the world around you, right? Your community, your home, the things you interact with every day. You're a soccer player, you're a computer kid, you're a video game kid, you're in dance, you're in whatever. What do you see out in the world, and understanding that world? And where do you see problems? Oh, you see this problem. Well, that's interesting. What could be the potential solution to that problem? Okay, these are different solutions. Interesting. How would this work? Why would this work? Why wouldn't this work? Problem solving. And guess what? That's a really important problem a lot of people have. That's a really great solution you came up with. Guess what? That is what work should be. I still think this generation growing up thinks about work as the slave labor that you have to do between the weekends where you get to spend some time doing what you want to do. I think a lot of kids are still growing up seeing their parents do jobs that they don't like just for the money. So I think people's context of work is not, here's how I'm going to go out into the world and make an impact and do things that matter and fix problems that matter to me. It's, how do I make a living paying for my bills? And then I can spend the rest of my time trying to enjoy life, the 2 days here, a couple hours after work. And I think we could raise a generation of kids looking out into the world, identifying problems, coming up with solutions, and that's your business. That's the work you're going to do. Now, if I say that, okay, XYZ problem I see in the world, there's too much food going to waste, restaurants are throwing food away. Okay. How much food do they throw away? Here's a math problem. About 100 pounds a day. How many people are hungry in the world? Let's go look that up. We're now gaining real, relevant, important knowledge. We're looking up how many people in the world are living in hunger. Okay, how much food would it take to feed those people? Okay, so how much food is being thrown away and how many people are hungry? Okay, now there's a logistical problem. How do we get the food to those people? Now there's a financial problem. How do we afford getting the food to those people? Now, if you can figure out all those, guess what? You're learning math. Those are all, you're talking about prices, you're talking about weights, you're talking about division, percentages, statistics. Now I care about math. Because you're not just giving me a sheet of BS problems and telling me I need to know this. You're saying, no, whatever math, whatever. We need to figure out how many people this and how many that. How do we figure that out? Okay, I need to figure that out. I want to know. Because this is a problem I've identified that matters to me, and there's a math solution for this that I need to figure out. I think you would have cared more about math. I think I can speak for everybody to say you would have cared at least a little bit more about math if that's why you were learning it. If you were learning math because it was involved in a solution to a problem that really mattered to you, I think you would have cared more to learn math versus, Timothy, you need to know, and you're like, there's no purpose. They didn't give you any purpose behind it. And so that's what I think is, instead of raising a generation of workers and spokes in the wheel, we should raise a generation of problem solvers, of people who look out into the world, find things that matter, and then take action on them. Have the vision, then take action on them and pursue those things and know that they have the power individually to make the impact there for the whole world, for the world around them and the greater world. A generation of visionaries, of people who believe in their ability to make a difference. And again, why are we waiting until 23, 24, 25 to step out into the world? Okay, I identified this problem in middle school at 12, and guess what? Just like when you're taking your master's, you have like a dissertation, whatever. How about if at the end of the year, you're going to launch this business, or somewhere throughout the year, well, I don't know, but you're going to launch this business. You're going to use AI, you're going to use technology, and you're going to actually go out into the world. You're going to come up with the solution, and now I want you to go pitch it to people. What do they think about it? Go survey some people. What are your target customers? Oh, you think a better dog food would be good. Make the dog food. Go out and talk to some people. Hey, would you buy a dog food like this? Does your dog have this problem? Go collect data on it. Okay, now launch it. And we'll guide you. This is how you set up the LLC or the corporation. And this is why you would do one versus the other. Let's talk about taxes. Again, math, right? Why would you do this? Well, you're going to make more money doing this than that. You're going to have more protection here than that. This is the way this works. Are you planning to get investors? Well, then you probably need this. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. And now you go out and launch this business. And now you have problems because launching a business creates problems. Okay, how do we solve this? You need more people. You need to hire this, or you have this issue, oh, you have to ship this here. Learning through the lens of doing. And what if, and now you got this guy over here. Oh, his pet food business this kid started is doing really well. And he just got featured on Good Morning America. Wow, that's great. How did you do that? He's making money. Ooh, I'm fired up. He made $50,000 this year. That's crazy. Oh, I heard the school has a grant now that they're going to pick 1 or 2 kids a year and they're going to invest $25,000 to give them marketing budget, blah, blah, blah. Once a year, twice a year, we have a group of investors that come to the school and everybody has pitch day and we pitch our stuff instead of science fair. Do that. That's fine. But also, how about pitch fair? Where now we all come and we sit down and we have our business ideas. Whoever's actually launched gets to be there. Oh, you haven't launched your business yet? You don't get to pitch. But if you've launched your business to a certain extent, got an MVP up, you got a website up, you got something there that you can show, now you get to pitch and investors are going to come in. And these are millionaires and billionaires that actually we start to build a network of them. They're showing up at these schools. You think they care about putting $10,000 into some kid's dream? It's a write-off. They're doing it. 10. 5 kids getting 10 kids getting money invested into their businesses. By the time they get out of high school or whatever, we don't even have to think about it in that construct. But, there comes a point where they're self-sufficient. I wouldn't even be surprised to see it be common that 14, 15-year-olds are making real money, and that changes everything. Does it need to be 12th grade? I don't know. Some of it is just people need daycare. They need somewhere to send their kids while they're at work, and so that's why we go to school until we're 18. And then all of a sudden at 18, you're an adult. Now I don't need daycare for you anymore. There is a connection there. I don't think it's a coincidence that we go to school until we're 18. It's daycare. And so they need to find something to fill the time. You know what I mean? And so we just we'll just teach them more stuff. They don't need to know any of this. You're doing it because you have to show them something. But there's no real purpose. And so that's my point is I think, and again, I spoke for you. I'm speaking for everybody, and I could be wrong, but I think it seems to me pretty common logic or common sense that if I had a purpose for what I'm learning, I'd be much more interested to learn it regardless of what's going on in my life. And maybe that solves the other to a certain extent. Maybe now I've got a purpose outside of whatever else I'm dealing with. And now I can be really focused on this and bettering myself and like, man, I really want to do this. I want to launch this business or I want to solve this problem in the world. I have meaning in my life. Maybe it's not even launching a business. Maybe it's just that like there's a lot of stray dogs and cats out there. I'm going to do work to see how I can find them a home and avoid euthanization and whatever. But I have a purpose. I don't think you said how many people asked me about my feelings. How about how many people asked me what I thought about what was going on in the world and where I thought I could make a difference? Who told me that? They told me maybe later on in your life you might make a difference. Nobody told me I can be important right now. Nobody told me it was okay for me to look out into the world and guided me to see where I can start to find these problems. If I didn't really know where to look, because as a kid, you're like, I don't know, right? But look out into the world. What do you think about this? Ask me questions. What do you think about that? Well, I might latch on to something I care about if you ask me enough questions. If you force my vision, if you force if you force me to look at enough stuff, at some point, I'm going to see something and I'm like, wait a minute. I don't know about that. I don't think that should be that way. Why is it that way? And at some point I might go, okay, that's I care about that. And that's all we need in life is a purpose. To live a good life, you need a purpose. You need something that matters to you. You need something that gives your life purpose, gives your life meaning, gives you something to wake up and do every day that matters. And when you are on your way out, you're going to think back about your life and you're going to say, what did I do that mattered? That's what I think a lot of what defines whether or not we lived a good life is based on is what did we do with it? What did we do with our time here? And that definition doesn't have to be through my lens. Doesn't matter. Everybody defines that on their own. But are you satisfied with what you've done with your life? And I think we wait until we're 25 to really start thinking about that, 30, 35 to really start understanding it. And I think that's what our educators can do for our kids better is help them find that and understand that at a way, way earlier age. Because just like Sheckler turning pro at 11, the things that we're accomplishing in our late 20s and early 30s, these kids could be doing at 12. They could be doing it at 12, 13 years old. But they're not exposed to it. They're not asked to. And and there's no reason why. That's what I was trying to say. I know you came at it from a different angle, which is great too. But what do you think about that? Do you think I'm right about that? Do you think that you would have cared more about the math you were learning if you would have been given that?
I'm not going to say I would care. I could care more, or I wouldn't. I really don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, math, being good at math runs in my family. You know what I'm saying? And my mom, she went through trauma. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for, she had a scholarship to go to college for what she was great at. You know what I'm saying? And it runs in the family. I see Samir's great at math. You know what I'm saying? I just believe that. I wasn't taught how to critically think. I didn't have a good idea of myself. I didn't understand how to socially navigate what I was going through. Right. I did find purpose in gangbanging. You know what I'm saying? My purpose was to be who I was. And I felt like while I was sitting in the classroom, I couldn't really absorb what was being made available for me to absorb because...
Well, unfortunately, you found your purpose there before you found it anywhere else, and maybe they could have helped you there.
But it was very early, is what I'm saying. And I think if I would have been introduced to the idea of philosophy and theories about what was taking place, I would have seen what was taking place in my life from the lens of critical thinking. If I would have understood the whole concept of a lot of things in life, you know what I'm saying?
If you would have grasped it, because you're grasping it now at 43.
No, but what I'm telling you is that we already grasp it. We do it. Think about it. We already do it. We don't understand that it's philosophy. We already do it.
I don't know that I would have really been doing that at 12, 13.
What were you walking around singing? What song came out that you processed, remembered, and believed about yourself and communicated to your buddies? Think about it. What movies did you watch that you put on the clothes and you emulated who you seen? We were already socially, psychologically, philosophy-wise, we were already choosing how we wanted to respond to whatever. All I'm saying is that no one, just like you said, the most basic of math fundamentals, arithmetic, is taught to us. But there is, I believe, a basic fundamental other than manners, other than make sure you have good hygiene. This is why you want to put deodorant on. This is why you want to make sure you pray before you eat. Like all of this stuff, I think is no more difficult to understand than when you really when it's really presented to you. You think about computing mathematics and division and fractions and all of that stuff. When I think about reading about critical thinking or what others before us thought about how we think in and out of situations, that seems a little bit more simpler to understand because it's being lived out every day. You have a father or a mother that comes home or may not come home and introduces you to a specific feeling that you've never felt before, and you got to navigate it and you got to figure it out and kind of find out this is what this is. And it's like, so then you pass that to your own children, you know what I'm saying, without getting them to understand. Like I was sharing with Ian just about like why it's important to understand how he has the capacity to critically think himself through situations where he wants to use his hands first. I might use a personal story, but he still has to live that out. You know what I'm saying? There was a kid in class, I don't know if I shared this with you, some kid decided it would be a great idea for his screen name during a school game to be something that, you know, was racially inappropriate, that was only towards Ian. You know what I'm saying? But what did Ian do? He was like, I thought about it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna walk to each student and ask them if I could see the computer. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I asked, and no one said that they did it. So I said, I'm gonna get up and walk. He wanted to make sure that no one in the class, because there were students that weren't in class that day that were participating. He wanted to make sure that he could rule out everyone, but he didn't take it past that day. You know what I'm saying? Emotionally, though, he thought about it and he was like, okay, I was upset. I was frustrated.
He was mad.
He was mad. You
Obviously,
know what I'm saying?
yeah. He was hurt.
But the thing is he limited it to a specific pool of kids, and he thought about it. By the time came to approach these kids, he didn't even like, he had time to process it. You know what I'm saying? And I think he critically thought about the situation. But we've introduced him to the idea of critical thinking. We've introduced him to the idea of like how his social reciprocity works, and how sometimes he could try to overcompensate for what he misses in friendships when people actually try to take advantage of him, you know what I'm saying, and try to make him and belittle him in front of everybody else, where his emotions try to force him into a situation to where he feels like I'm justified and making someone else feel little, you know what I'm saying, with my hands and with my strength. But it's like, nah, man, like kill him with kindness and grace him out, which is something that we were taught the opposite of. But I'm saying all that to say, like, I understand where you're coming from, because I think in any situation where your purpose, where someone can help you to manufacture, well, not I won't say manufacture, but like help you develop your, like,
Help you find it.
Help you to find your purpose, or like lead you to it. But even in that, depending on...
Because I think we want different things out of the school system, it sounds like. I don't need any of that from them. But I'm still... The reason why I haven't said that is because I'm thinking about all the kids. And there are kids who that's going to be very beneficial to. What I want from the school system is for them to prepare my kid for life in terms of being educated. I want them to educate. That's it. I actually don't trust them to handle those sensitive topics that are going to write on the hard drive of my kid's mind and heart. I don't really want them talking about that to my kids.
About what?
Just things that are deeply emotional. I don't want them programming the wiring of my kids' social interactions and emotions and self-image. I don't want them to do that.
So I'll ask you, what do you understand about, I'm just saying, you yourself personally, your lived experience, what you know you felt purposed in once and where you're at today. How are you approaching that with your children today? Or do you, like, psychologically, philosophy, you know, communication, or is it more so like you guys are living the example and they're able to, because I think
that's it. I don't think there's a problem to fix, and I actually feel like if I overemphasize it, I might create a problem that doesn't exist. I might get them to be too acutely aware of their emotions and interactions where it's unnatural. I just lead by example. We have a healthy, functional household. We don't argue. If we do argue, it's a healthy argument. And we communicate. We show mutual love and respect. We live our, we do our best to live our values, to do what we say we're going to do, keep each other accountable. And I'm not projecting on them. I'm not saying you are, but I'm not projecting on them the things that happened in my house growing up, because that's not their experience. So it's irrelevant to them. You know, I'm not going to teach them about traumas that they haven't been through, but I do know that because I've been through it, giving them what I'm giving them in terms of experience of growing up in a functional household, they've already got that covered. They already know what right from wrong is, what it's supposed to be and how it's not supposed to be. And so everything else is going to bounce off of them like like oil and water, you know? So that's pretty much what I'm doing. So, but again, I'm saying like, there are kids growing up in dysfunctional environments like I was, and sounds like you were, and lots of other kids. And I do think that for them, they have to rely on the school to provide certain resources because they're not going to get it anywhere else. So that's why I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm saying I don't want that from that. I don't need that from that. It's interesting that you're talking about that.
Well, I have both of my kids have been called nigger at school, and they both were called nigger at school under 5 and under. So, and what
this
I'm saying
is a whole other conversation.
It's not
but
a whole other conversation. What I'm saying
no,
is
what I was
that,
about to say, but I'll wait.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
No, because I was just.
I cut you off. I'm sorry.
I was just responding to when you were saying that. I guess I just received what you said as if like I was kind of like trying to teach the kids based off of my own experience, but more so, I think why I'm so passionate about this is because in both experiences where my kids were called this and they went to the teacher did not handle it well. You know, they were in a situation to where the kids actually, they handled it well, Samira and Ian, but they handled it in a way where, and I'm sorry, Samira wasn't called the nigger word. She was identified outside of, you know, her name according to her race in a way that she was confused about. You know what I'm saying? And ultimately, to me, it seemed the same thing. And ultimately, what I was saying was that these situations forced the kids to want to be and want to look like the individuals that were making them feel the way they were feeling, because they felt like if I didn't look like this and I looked like them, I would be more like them. And so all I was saying was that I think there's an absence of helping individuals to understand in those 4 pillars, I would call them, how to identify, you know what I'm saying, what's taking place, you know what I'm saying,
But don't you think that's on the parents more than the teachers?
I think all of it is on the parents.
Right.
All of it is on the parents.
But some kids don't have that.
No, I'm saying that you should be able to teach your children mathematics as well.
For
you
sure.
know what I'm saying? Science as well.
For
all
sure.
Of that stuff.
For sure.
But even more so, the responsibility for teaching them these things are solely in the house of the parents. You know what I'm saying? I believe that whole psychological, sociological communications and philosophy, we're living by that daily. You know what I'm saying? One way or another, whether it's healthy or unhealthily. Some parents may not have the college education or the 100 class level of those things. I'm just saying that stuff is presented in school. It's presented at the higher level of education, those 4 things. And to me, it's just now hitting me. Why is it available only at that level? Why not lower? If it's important to get the degree, if you have to have some level of these things to get a degree, then why is it not available? You know what I'm saying? And these are the 4 things.
Even if just a simplified version of it, right?
The most basic.
Right.
And that's all it is. Like a lot of this stuff, when you look at it, it sounds a 100 level course class, but it's really the fundamentals of communicating, the fundamentals of socially interacting, the fundamentals of how your brain works, you know, in connection to your neurological system.
You also can, though. Like, even now you can. Like, I took Psychology 100 when I was 12.
See, I think that's dope. Whoever presented you with that opportunity, that to me, hearing that was kind of like what I was asking, you know what I'm saying, earlier. Were there any conversations not about your feelings, like not
No,
about
my mom did that. I took math 100, English 100, Spanish, psychology 100, all at Palomar.
That's great. That's dope. That's what we're trying to line Ian up with.
And Maricosta? Yeah, and Maricosta. Yeah. But look, all I'm saying is that you know, what I want from the school system is for them to spend the time that they have with my kid, preparing them.
Like, what would you want them? What do you want them to come out of their school experience learning the most? You got a younger one that still has to go through
capturing their idea, like capturing the idea, like starting to move in the direction. Like, here's the problem: is, and we should wrap it up because it's almost 10.
Right. Keisha's like, what's going on?
But damn, I keep dropping my phone. People get to college, especially if you're on that track where you're like high school, boom, college, right? Or university, right? Like, if you do that, like a lot of people do, if you've gone through all of high school without anybody forcing you to look out into the world and actually identify problems, solutions, the way things work, get an understanding of the world. If you've never done that, then how could you and where could you have been exposed to things that are going to help you find your interest? If you haven't done the internships, you know, which I've always said that should be like your whole last 2 years of high school, I think should all just be internships. I feel like you should spend the first couple of years identifying your interests and working on them. And then the last 2 years, okay, you've identified these 4 things. Semester 1 of 11th grade is going to be one of them. Semester 2 is another one. Semester 1 of senior year. Or if you've identified, oh, I really do love this thing, you can do more of that. You can shoot, you know, you have to at least try 2 things or 3 things, and then you can spend the 1 extra semester going back to one of those 3 for your final semester of senior year. And then maybe now you've spent a year working in this company, and you might have a track straight to there, or go to university and know what you want. But what really happens is people go general education in high school learning very generic stuff that's not applicable, getting further and further down the track of math into obscurity, further and further down the track of English into Shakespearean whatever. Then they show up at college or university, and what's the first thing they do? Here's a bunch of general education. Let's go right back into math and English. It's the same exact stuff you were learning senior year of high school, you're working on freshman year of university. Same thing. Same exact thing. Why? That is an absolute waste. And then maybe you don't know what you want to do yet, so you haven't picked your major. Then you get into your second year. Now, okay, I got my AA. I have no choice. I have to pick a major now. I'll just do business. How many people have a business degree or arts degree or something that's just very general simply because they had no idea what they were going to do? And then they get out of college, and then the first thing they do is they go, okay, I got to get a job. I need to make some money. Let me now go out into the world and start getting some experience wherever I can find an opportunity. It's not like, oh, here's the thing I've been working on. Now let me go do it. It's, okay, I finished that. My parents are happy now. I got my degree. School says I'm smart now. Everybody, I can hold this paper up and say that, look who I am. I'm a dignified individual. Now, who will hire me? Anybody, please? And my experience becomes whatever random job I'm able to land. And then I end up staying there for 30 years. And now I just fell into this. There was no intention. There was no purpose. There was no forethought. This was just the job I happened to get when I got out of university. And that led me, maybe I didn't stay there. Maybe I hopped from that. Now I know a little bit about this. So that guides my next decision. Now I'm going to work here. And I'm falling like a Plinko thing, you know, like the ball. I'm just ending up wherever I end up. Mm-hmm. By happenstance with no actual intention. And so that is, I think, the biggest downfall, and that's the problem, and that's where I think the education system is failing kids, is not exposing, not helping them find their interest.
I believe those 4 things will help. I really do, man.
What 4 things?
The four things.
Oh, yeah.
I think if I mention them again, you know what I'm saying, it's just going to sound super repetitive.
No,
but
I get it.
Those 4 pillars, I think, are the foundation of how we operate as humans, man.
But that's not looking out into the world and finding problems. That's looking within.
No, it's not. I believe it philosophy helps you to look out. Philosophy is based off of problems that happen in the world.
But it's not actually looking out. It's preparing yourself within so that maybe you can see better when you look out. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not the same thing. Well, I'm talking about literally looking at, okay, what are you interested in? Dogs. Okay, let's research everything about dogs. How are dogs bred? Where are dogs sold? How are dogs groomed and cared for? And how do adoption centers run? Let's look at every facet of it. And where do we see there's friction? Where do we see there's something wrong? You can't replace that with anything else. I'm saying that is only that, looking out into the way things work.
How do you get there if you don't understand who you and how you are?
You ask questions.
No, how do you get there? How do you get to that without knowing who and how you are?
That's why I said both of them work, but they're not the same thing. One doesn't replace the other. Sure, maybe getting a better understanding of yourself and how you feel about things and how you process things is going to help you see more clarity, but you still have to go out and look at specific things to figure out where you're going to make an impact. I can study philosophy all day. That doesn't tell me what I'm going to get up and do tomorrow.
No, but if you're studying philosophy in school or at home, in the places where you spend the most time in the day, when you go out to see a dog, or you go out to explore, I just believe those 4 things will probably help you more than math, English. Geography, I can kind of understand, but even history, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you don't need geography. You got all the geography in the world right here.
You do. It's different now. You know what I'm saying? I get it. But Ian, Samira, Zuri, like and they're probably, by the time they are, like Ian, he has a phone now. He doesn't get full-fledged access though. You know what I'm saying? He has access to maps. He can look on Google and understand geography. But if I'm gonna depend on this to teach him completely, then it's just like,
I mean, I don't know anything about geography, and I don't need to.
Well, I mean, that's what you feel.
You're
at an age now to where you have no need for it. You already have your passion. You're a business-minded serial entrepreneur. Why would you need geography?
Yeah, I get you. I mean, I get what you're saying.
I heard you talk about geographically why you wanted to establish, one of your last companies, and you thrived in the concept and the idea of being able to help people connect, you know what I'm saying, all across the globe. And I think that if you knew more about geography, who knows how much that would have helped, but you didn't need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you navigated the way you did.
I do know about geography, but my point is, like, in that context, I do know. And so it kind of just really supports my point, is that I learned about that because I started importing and exporting. I found a problem there. There aren't enough options outside of China. This website where everybody goes to find factories is real shady. That led me to a solution. Well, what if there was and that's what schools should teach you too, is problem solving, how to identify that there's an issue, and then what do you do next? How do you create a solution for it? Being solutions oriented and creative in your problem solving. Okay, so if this platform sucks, then obviously a better platform would be better, right? Yes. Well, what would better mean? Think through that. Well, better would mean, safer. I know who the factories are that I'm working with on here. The payments are protected, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so build that. And what would more options be? Well, everybody has to get stuff from China. Why is that bad? Well, because there's trade issues and geopolitical tensions and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so then where else do they make stuff? I don't know. Go research it. Okay, well, they make stuff here. Now I'm learning about geography because my problem led me to that, which means it's relevant to me.
Yeah, but you're doing that at 40, 41, 42?
But I could have done that at 12.
You could have.
Nobody gave me the opportunity to. Instead, They told me learn this stupid algebra.
Right, and that's my point.
That I'm not using.
I think, I think we're gonna continue to disagree to agree. You know what I'm saying? But
you don't agree with that?
I believe. So I do agree with you.
Did you learn about Genghis Khan in school?
No.
Did you learn about Shakespeare?
No.
What'd you learn about?
I didn't learn nothing. Like I
neither did I.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like I in those 4 areas, and that's why I think, like, it was.
You never took a history class?
I'm telling you right now, like you said earlier, even if I
Are you saying you don't remember it?
I don't remember what I learned.
Okay, so that's everybody. You think that's just you because of where you were coming from.
No.
Everybody forgot all this stuff.
I specifically remember not being able to compute what was taking place in math and getting frustrated versus being in history, hearing what's being said and being interested, but checking out. Like, I think it was a difference. I think there was a part of me that was fascinated about math. Even today, I could sit down with Ian. Keisha's like, you got a math problem, go to Timothy. I still have to take statistics for my class right now, but I'm not intimidated by it. You know, I just believe my mind works like that. It's something that I think genomically I'm able to do is compute well. Like, I'm very analytical. At the same time, though, I think that was the frustrating part, and why I got so frustrated is because something in here was like, I want to work, but I can't. You know what I'm saying? Versus with English and history and even in science, I was interested in chemistry, you know, or science. You know what I'm saying? Like dissecting frogs and like all of this stuff. It was exciting. I just think that by the time, and I think I keep harping on these things because as I learned about them last year, I realized like I got locked into a specific philosophy about myself and life in the Valley and Oceanside. Same thing with communication. I didn't want to communicate with Hispanics or Samoans no more because of what my ideation, my identity had become. I didn't socially understand what was taking place with law enforcement, who once were my DARE officers, who I aspired to be like, and now are coming in and locking up my mom and my uncle, and we're not getting no counseling. You know, all of these things, molested at 8, like these compounding realities of trauma, and then just this whole weird thing beginning to manifest as I'm turning into this teenager who it seems like people can't hear. And then my coach, my football coach, Coach Kovacevic, the one time that I think he just went out on a limb and just got in my face and was screaming at me and yelling at me and embarrassing me is what I thought. He was just trying to embarrass me in front of everybody. This dude was just trying to love me into this correction of just like, bro, you are walking in the wrong identity. You could be something special, is really what he was saying. But he was just like, you're making a damn fool of yourself in this school. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, all of that stuff, bro, I think could have been different if I had an opportunity to be presented. Even the people that, like I said, they sourced out as contractors to come in and talk to us for that 30 for 45 minutes. They had a curriculum, but there was no, it's like they had these solutions to the problem they thought we had, and they presented this solution. Let's put these enemies in front of each other and get them to talk about what they don't like about each other. And then not realizing that as soon as we get out of here, it's probably gonna go up again. You know what I'm saying? Because now this dude stood there and me mugged me the whole time and was just like, and we just couldn't do nothing to each other. And there was nothing of substance really being brought out of us. You know what I'm saying? This is very much, you know, how can I say it? This isn't everybody's experience, obviously, right?
Right.
But I just keep speaking from mine. You know what I'm saying? I want my kids to be able to have an opportunity to to be introduced to critical thinking, to social systems, to the way their psychology works, and to philosophy to the degree to where people aren't trying to create little thems in school. But it's like, man, the way that the school's turning anyway, it seems like in public school, unfortunately, that's what's happening in a whole nother way. You know what I'm saying? With all, my son came home and was like, man, there's tampons in the boys' bathroom. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are they there? I'm just like, man, that's just what's going on these days. It's like, I don't even really know how to answer that. You know what I'm saying? Without making him feel, because he has the kind of heart to where he's like,
I don't let that kind of stuff put me in an awkward position. I just say what I think about it. Because I owe it to him to just say, he's coming to me because it's weird. And
of course.
and he's and so I'm put in a situation where now I either got to just, if I try to smooth it over, then I'm basically validating what you've done. Or I got to just call it like it is. Maybe that's just my demeanor.
Yeah, it's just, being, I think it's just being safe on how you communicate it, because they are the 13-year-old us. So if I say it in a way to where it's reckless, or it's just how I'm feeling, and he goes and he says it the same way to some degree, and this is what I mean about the whole. You
got to teach him in a way that he can navigate that too.
Right,
because they're not going to respond well to it.
He has the kind of heart to where he sees kids getting bullied at school. He sees the kids that are different, that are being treated different. Yeah. And he was once the kid that was treated different because he's black. And so he's just like, all the other kids are saying that this is wrong, and that it is this, and that it is that, and that these individuals are this or that. And he was just like, for whatever reason, I don't feel that way about them. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it okay is it okay to support them? And I was like, what do you mean by support? You know what I'm saying? And he was like, do I have to treat them like everyone else? And I'm like, how do you feel everyone else is treating them? And he was like, I feel like everyone else is treating them like they're aliens, or like they're wrong for what's going on inside of them. And so I was like, and so how do you feel like you should respond to that? And he was like, if someone's crying because someone has treated them bad, I feel like someone should be there to support them and help them to feel better about whatever's going on. And I was like, you just have to be careful when you step into that space, that you know who you are, you know what I'm saying? And that you know what you believe, you know what I'm saying? Which we have conversations all the time about who he believes he is and his identity, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, but he said, I realize that when I do step into that, I've been called these things, you know what I'm saying? Like when he's around some of the girls who kind of walk in that light, some of the boys are saying he's gay and he's this. And he's just like, man, how do I navigate that? Like, can I? And I'm just like, no, you can't. Like, keep your hands to yourself. It's words. You know who you are. It's what I was telling you. You have to just know when you step in to advocate who you are and what your identity is. You know what I'm saying? But man, it's 9:57, bro.
Yeah.
This has been Randomly Intentional. I'm Timothy on Purpose. I enjoy chopping it up with my boy Rain, you know what I'm saying? Brothers from generations ago, you know what I'm saying? I don't think we could probably have these conversations with anyone else, you know what I'm saying?
It's interesting trying to also bridge the gap, or bridge the space between our childhood and our kids' childhood, because some things have changed and some things never change because they're just humanity, and anyway, I mean, I cherish these conversations because I have my ideas in my head, but you can go down a thought path in your own mind that's just one-sided and lopsided. People are afraid of resistance or alternative opinions, like people only want to hear what they want to hear. That's why social media works so well, because they get an algorithm based around how you feel about things and what you're into, and they just keep feeding it back to you. You get this positive feedback loop where you've identified that you like Trump, or you like Joe Biden, or you like this or that, and then it goes great. And then they just keep showing you what you want to see, because that's what we really want. Right. We just want to hear what we want to hear. We just want to hear that we're right and everything that we thought is true, and be in our own little comfort zone. But that's not the path of development. Right. If you want to grow, if you want to be smarter, if you want to be a better person, you have to be willing to stand and be challenged. And people don't want that. They don't want constructive criticism. They don't want any criticism. They don't want alternative ideas. That's why groups work, because we like to get in a group of other people that say and think the same things as us and just keep feeding it back to each other. Right. And then we're all afraid to stand out from that group and say anything different. So even if we have a different opinion, we just keep saying it because we don't want to ruffle any feathers. So we just keep going along with the same stuff. So anyway, this stuff that we do, when we see things differently, that's where we grow. We help each other grow. And I'm happy to do that. And I'm grateful to be able to do that with somebody that I trust and I respect every day. So anyway, love you. Love you guys too, man.
Yep. Y'all be safe. Stay well. Make it count today.
Let's do it.
Peace.
Peace.